All right, so I want to go to Aaron Torres. Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. He had a chance to connect with Kirk Herbstreit, and I thought it was a very informative segment. It's available there, the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. But this is Kirk Herbstreit talking about the University of Alabama and the New England Patriots. Nick Saban getting a lot of love from Kirk Herbstreit and Aaron Torres.
I was just curious, as somebody who gets to be in these facilities, as somebody who gets to sit with Nick Saban a couple times a year, what is that guy doing differently? Because it's incredible to me that they continue to stay at this elite dominant level.
I think the best way to answer that is if I asked you, why is New England and Bill Belichick, they may not win the Super Bowl every year, but why is that brand, for whatever it's been, 18 or 19 years, why are they every year in the mix? And the answer to me is very similar. It's because the culture that Nick Saban has created, the players, when they come in from high school as a five-star all-world kid, they learn right away through not only Coach Saban, but his great team. They learn it from the players, the older players. They learn to fall in line really quickly. The culture consumes them, and that culture is a work ethic that is unparalleled around the country. So when you bring in pretty high-profile players, very talented players, and you bring them into a culture where the best players on the team are the hardest workers on the team.
All right, so that's part of it. You're going to have to go and listen to the rest of it there with Kirk Herbstreit, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, Aaron Torres, Fox Sports Radio. Welcome back to T-Tail, man. I hope all is well.
Ryan, thank you for having me. Thank you for sharing that with your awesome audience. It was a very informative conversation. I'm just going to be honest with your audience because I always am. It was a brief conversation. He only had a few minutes, but he was awesome. And obviously the Bama stuff is honestly not even just for this purpose of this show, but it's what stuck out to me. Obviously one of the premier voices in this sport and sharing some insight that you can't get a lot of other places.
So Kirk Herbstreit, and he's had a chance to spend a significant amount of time in this program. He's had a chance to get the inner workings of what actually clicks here in Tuscaloosa. I like the question. You're talking about you have a chance to travel around the country. What's different about Alabama? And it is we kind of take that for granted because we live here. We see the operation, the attention to detail, the focus, and it is quite fun to watch.
Yeah, Ryan, it's really interesting because I thought of you. You know, you come on regularly with Arnie Spanier and I, Saturday nights, Fox Sports Radio national show. And one of the questions, I'm a problem solver by nature. I like figuring out why stuff works the way that it does. And one of the questions that we always ask you, Arnie Spanier and I, is what is Nick Saban doing that is so much different than everybody else? Because you look at the recruiting rankings and Alabama recruits at an elite level, but it's not that much more significant than what's going on at Georgia or LSU or Clemson or Ohio State or maybe Florida State in the Jimbo Fisher era or Texas or whoever. And you've always given us good insight, but I've always never been able to put my finger on it because there is no reason why Alabama should be winning the way that they do in a sport where, this isn't 1976 anymore. We've got great strength and conditioning programs everywhere. We've got great nutrition programs everywhere. Coordinators all across the SEC are making $1 million a year, so it's not like Bama just went out and hired the best offensive and defensive coordinator that nobody else can afford. There is no reason for Bama to continue to be winning at the level they do, except for Nick Saban and whatever is that secret sauce in those four walls at the football facility. And so I thought Kirk was awesome. I always love talking about this stuff with you as well, because it is one of those things, like I've said a few times now, there really is no reason that Bama should be continuing to win at the insane level they do. It'd be one thing if they were fluctuating between 12-0 and 8-4, but I mean, they're 12-0 or 11-1 every single season. I think the stat now is they've been number one in the country at some point every single year dating back to 2008. It's just absolutely incredible, Ryan Fowler.
Well, and I don't have the chance to compare it to other programs. I've often wanted to go to other practices or other programs just where I've got a barometer to go, okay, I see what Alabama does, but I don't have a chance to see, right there in your neck of the woods, USC or over in Clemson or up in another state. I mean, I don't have a chance to see that. All I can compare it to is what I've seen with Nick Saban. Now, I've seen previous coaching staffs here, but I mean those have pretty much been disasters here. I mean compared to Nick Saban's.
Yeah, no, and it's just and it's what makes Saban so incredible. I know this is a conversation we've had on your show, and I don't want to alarm an Alabama fan, but we will never see anything like what Nick Saban is doing ever again, not just at Alabama, but anywhere. And I know people want to compare it to the Bear Bryant era and all that stuff, and I get it. And you guys are the Alabama historians, but Bear Bryant over a sustained 12, 13-year level wasn't this consistent. And it's so fascinating to me, Ryan. You know, I'm myself a bit of a historian of this sport kind of in the bigger picture. And, you know, I remember talking to coaches at Miami from the years that they were winning national championships and how hard it was to maintain that level for 2, 3, 4 years. Guys start coming in as recruits entitled. They think that because the team won a championship the year before that they were part of it. I've talked to coaches at USC during the Pete Carroll era who said very similar things. And so that's always been the incredible thing about Nick Saban is how many times, Ryan, in this Saban era have we said, well, this is the year they have to take a step back. Well, A.J. McCarron's gone, or this coordinator's gone, Kirby Smart's gone, Lane Kiffin's gone. And the process just keeps on rolling and rolling and rolling. I think that's the other incredible part about this Saban thing is he's doing it with basically entirely new coaching staffs every single year. I'm just continually amazed. And like I said, this isn't an Alabama thing when I say we'll never see anything like this again. This is a college football thing. We'll see 2, 3, 4-year sustained runs. We're never going to see 12, 13 years the way it's going on now. I would add really quick, and I know I'm going on long here, Ryan, but look at Clemson. They can't even maintain it over a stretch of 10 or 15 games, let alone 10 or 15 years. It's just unbelievable what Saban is doing over there.
It's a great point. I mean, you lose your focus when everybody talks about you and everybody says you're the number one team, you're the number one this, you're the number one this. It goes to your head. I mean, Nick Saban told us last night he's against all rankings. He doesn't like rankings. Wow. He doesn't like these preseason rankings. He pretty much called it clutter with Alabama number one in the team in the country.
Yeah, I go back to I'll never forget, Ryan. So Miami in 2001 they won the national championship. In 2000 they basically should have been in the national championship game, but if there was a 14 playoff, they would have made the playoff and probably won. 2002 was the very famous game where Maurice Clarett in Ohio State beat Miami last second pass interference that cost Miami a second straight national championship. And I remember a coach, I asked a coach, I said, when did you know, when did you start to feel things were slipping? And he said, even before the Ohio State game, he said, you could tell the cracks in the foundation where this was while Miami, by the way, was on some kind of insane, they were on like a 28-game winning streak spanning 3 different seasons. And I just continue to go back to that, Ryan. When I look at this Bama thing, by the way, I would add with Clemson, I threw out this stat on Twitter the other day. Clemson was a bad play call from potentially losing to an unranked team. I threw out this stat. Clemson, if they had lost that game, it would have been the 3rd time in 4 years they lost to an unranked opponent. Nick Saban has not lost to an unranked team since 2007.
Wow,
Ryan hasn't lost. I think I did the math. I think it's 87 games. Unranked team, 2007. Clemson nearly lost their 3rd in 4 years. Ohio State, we've seen them get upset, and the Alabama Express just keeps on rolling on.
All right, so I want to get you into a lot of different things. Okay, I want to take you to your state because your state started all this, okay? It's all you, man. I mean, it's something about that state. You guys always got to, we're all just moving along, and college football's never been more popular. And then you guys come up with this likeness stuff, okay?
I agree.
Where do you stand? You've been involved with the sport on both the football side of things, basketball side of things. Where do you stand? Do you stand with your state?
No, I'll backtrack. I don't really, I guess, have a fundamental issue. If a Tua Tagovailoa is on campus, has established himself, and, Tide 100.9 wants him to come in, do a few reads, give him a few bucks. I don't have a problem with athletes benefiting off their name, image, and likeness. What I have a couple problems with is, one, a politician which really doesn't know any of the issues and doesn't care. He wants to look cool and woke and hang out with LeBron James on his TV set, and he's doing it because he knows that there's no real opposition to this. But on the flip side, what I think concerns me is I don't think that the people that want to push this through, and now we're talking Florida may have a bill by the end of this not calendar year, but within a year from now. It's that if we do this, we have to do this the right way. We can't just have 50 different states picking and choosing how they want to do this. But I do think there are some long-term ramifications of all this stuff. And I talked about it a lot on my show today. If you want to listen to Herb Street, you can listen to me off the top talking about this topic as well. I think there are some long-term things that could really hurt college athletics. And a lot of people don't want to hear it. But, if Tua first of all, I heard Urban Meyer on with Colin Cowherd today. He said, if your best players are making $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 a year, it's going to be really hard to keep that locker room intact because even in the NFL, everybody's making something. Everybody has a salary. And so what happens when it's only 3 or 4 guys, when it's only Jerry Jeudy and Tua Tagovailoa, on Sunday mornings going to do their promotional, and they're walking around with cash and nobody else is. But beyond that, there are long-term ramifications. Alabama is a Nike school. What happens when Nike says, you know what? We're paying Alabama $10 million a year. We'd rather just pay whoever the quarterback is and the basketball star, and then everybody else can take a hike. Well, that money that Nike pays helps in a lot of ways with the athletic programs that people aren't as familiar with, the volleyball and tennis and whatever Alabama happens to have. There are so many, one thing that I haven't heard talked about, Ryan, we talk about this transfer craze in college football. What happened if some Bama booster agreed to give Jalen Hurts X amount of dollars to go to Bama, and 2 years later or a year later he loses his starting job and he decides he wants to leave? Is he contractually obligated to stay in Tuscaloosa because of these endorsement deals that he signed? I just think I'm bringing all this up as quickly as I can because I just think there is a lot of nuance to this. And when you go on social media, when you go online, when you hear LeBron James puffing out his chest, they don't want to make it about nuance. They want to make it a black and white issue, and there is a lot of gray area when it comes to all this.
Aaron, we're watching a group, and we're asking them, and this is what Jacob and I, and Jacob, you jump in if I've said it incorrect, but we were discussing this prior to bringing you on, and we're both for athletes making some side cash, okay? I'm not against that, but I'm also looking at a basketball scandal that they cannot even enforce when the FBI catches people red-handed. We're talking about a group that does not have the enforcement staff to even enforce their own rules. It's a free-for-all, right? The NCAA. So we're asking them a stress unit to even become more stressed. What's the feasibility? How do we manage this? How do we control it? Who's in charge of it? Those are questions that we still don't even have any even clue to answer these questions.
Well, and this is why when Mark Emmert or when Gene Smith, the Ohio State athletic director, said, or Greg Sankey, who I thought had a very good statement on this topic, like when they say we're working towards resolutions, it can't be that some legislator, some political person who knows nothing about college sports just decides that tomorrow in his state kids should be allowed to make money. And I'm 100% on board with you, Ryan, is that it is a nuanced topic. I'm with you. I think they should be able to make extra spending cash. I mean, I use this analogy quite a bit, but listen, Ryan Fowler benefits off his name, image, and likeness. Aaron Torres, I do stuff for my bookie and sponsors on my podcast, and, I am making money off my likeness. So it would feel unfair for me to not allow others to. But like you said, is that it is more nuanced, right? And it is more complicated. And, I was thinking about this today. Alabama or whoever is recruiting 30, 40, 50, 70, 90 kids a year, and they obviously whittle it down to a 25-man recruiting class. Now you got to figure out, in addition to room and board and all the stuff that you're offering them, you got to figure out, okay, well, this is the dollar figure that we got to figure out a way to come up with because Ohio State is offering this much, or, mom wants this as part of the deal, and we got to find a guy. It's like I get it. I get it. None of us, I still haven't heard maybe one or two people, but most people aren't against the idea of athletes earning their name, image, and likeness. But there has to be a system in place. It has to be structured. Like you said, somebody has to regulate it. I guess I don't like the idea. I don't mind if Tua comes to campus and he has established himself and he is a rock star. Of course. Okay, that's different. I guess where I get concerned is somebody deciding, Ryan Fowler, the oil tycoon, and I know there's no oil in Tuscaloosa, but work with me here, says, you know what? We haven't had a good quarterback in a while. Whoever the best quarterback is, I'll offer him whatever it takes. Like, to me, that feels weird because, again, then it opens the Pandora's box of what happens if that guy doesn't start. What happens if that guy starts and gets replaced like Tua and Jalen? There's so much nuance to this stuff. And like I said, the only part that really bothers me is, like I said, these politicians that don't care about the issue, that don't even understand the issue, are the ones that are kind of trying to force it through.
Yeah, and you never trust a politician, especially going into an election. You never. They'll promise you the world and deliver you absolutely nothing.
Well, Ryan, and really quick, here's the thing. This is a thing that on a national scale, like nobody, it's one of those things, right? Like, so I'll give you an example. So my buddy Clay Travis, right? He always says, I'm anti-death. I hate death more than anybody else. And it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but the point he's trying to prove is that everybody always, it's easy to take a stance on a topic that nobody's going to fight you back on, right? Like if I just said, I hate people that hurt animals. Okay, yeah, like I think we all kind of don't really like, I don't think most people are in favor of, kicking puppies in the stomach, right? Like no, it's ridiculous. And so I think that the reason that this particular thing bothered me is it's because, like you said, it's a election year. As Mike Leach referenced, by the way, a few weeks ago, there are a lot of issues in California that do need to be addressed. My wife works on Skid Row, which is one of the most dangerous, unsafe kind of homeless encampments in the country. But he's picking a topic that there will be no pushback on. And so when you say you can't trust a politician, you especially can't trust a politician when he's backing something that he knows nobody will object to, if that makes sense.
But, when you look at college athletics, and Aaron, I don't want to extend it too much longer. I know that you and I get deep into these conversations, and I mean, I've got my head wrapped around this. But, if you think about an athlete, okay, and I know we always think about Tua Tagovailoa, we think about Jerry Jeudy, we think about Devontae Smith, but there's a lot behind the scenes that never get to that level. College athletics is not a bad thing. You're offering somebody to go and throw a racket around at a tennis ball or, swim 500 meters, and you've got a full scholarship. You walk out with very little, if any, student debt. You're put up in a housing. You're given a pretty good opportunity. That's all funded by the big college athletics. It's not like, Alabama's just rolling over here with just they have a surplus of money. But it's not like college athletics is a complete ripoff. It's not like a fraud. I mean, the money is getting returned back into the system. I'm looking at a brand new sports science facility that's being built here at Alabama. They have the best training facility in the world. It's not just for football. It's for all the athletes on campus.
This has been my biggest argument. And, I actually got into a little bit on social media with Richard Sherman, the cornerback in the NFL. Really? I did. The problem was I went after him, and he didn't respond for like a day and a half, and I didn't see it until like 3 hours later. So it was like weird to go back at him. But his exact quote was, he thinks this system should be destroyed. And I said, bro, the NCAA system gave you the opportunity, free education, University of Stanford, Stanford University, whatever, one of the best universities in the world. And you want to destroy this system? And, first of all, he didn't even understand what I was saying. He's like, the NCAA didn't pay my scholarship. It's like, no crap. Obviously, no one thinks the NCAA wrote Stanford University a check with Richard Sherman's name on it. But the point I'm trying to bring up is that, no matter where it is, you're exactly right, Ryan. And, Ryan, I've said this a few times. The number one mistake the NCAA made, you know what it is? Rather than coming out every time there's objection with some lawyered up kind of document where nobody really understands what you're saying. You know what I would have said if I was the NCAA? As soon as this bill went into play, I would have gone on the public offensive. I would have said, get Governor Newsom, who's the governor of California, we invite you down to UCLA. We want you to see how all athletes are treated, how all athletes, as you said, Ryan, unlimited meals. At the big universities, nutritionists that help kind of formulate nutrition plans, academic support for those people that aren't going to be professional athletes and need to make money, free housing, free health care. If somebody goes down with an injury, they're not paying a dime out of pocket. And it's not just, to your point, and this is the most important part, we want to change a whole rule for something that may affect 10, 20, 15, 20 people a year when there are I don't know about tens of thousands, but there are thousands across the country that, as you said, Ryan, tennis scholarships, golf, volleyball, men's wrestling, swimming and diving, you go on and on and on down the list. It's just really, I think it's a scary time because you don't know what the future holds, but I think the wrong people are trying to make decisions, and I think it could cost us something, that we all love dearly. And I know I'm leaving on kind of a sour note here, but I think that is the reality until we get some clarification on kind of what the next steps are.
Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. He's always having a great sit-down conversation. This week it's Kirk Herbstreit. Find him, Aaron_Torres. Happy college football. I'm glad we were able to talk about week number 6 in college football. We had a great breakdown, Aaron.
Well, listen, first of all, if you like my talk on that bill, I talk about it off the top of the show. But, yeah, man, we'll also get to talk about football again here in the future. Enjoy the bye week. I hope you get to kick up, get your feet on the couch and watch a game and relax, Ryan. But it was a fun talking to you as always, man.
No doubt. Torres, have an awesome week, man. Weekend.
Thank you.